Thank you for being here. We're excited to have you as a guest.
Jesse, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, let's start it off by asking what got you into recruiting.
Interesting. For about 25 years of my professional life, I was on the corporate side of healthcare. I was building very successful sales forces, and I used recruiters a lot. But in the work that I did with recruiters, they were not providing the information that I needed. They'd flood my email with resumes. There's nothing about why the candidate's interested in this opportunity. What skills do the candidate bring? What are their compensation requirements? So part of that was I traveled about 90% of the time. And after 25 years, I dragged my bag in about 2 a.m. Sunday morning after leaving Monday, and I said, I can't do it. So I started looking at what I could do. And I was done traveling. Where I live, you're a doctor, a lawyer, you own your own business, or you travel. So
Hmm.
I started looking around and I came across Executive Search, and they offered a platform that really gives those hiring managers insight into the candidate before they invest the time to interview them. So
Hmm.
when I saw that, I said, hey, that's right in my wheelhouse. And looking back 5+ years, I should have done it a decade before.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy you did it. It sounds like it's worked out well for you. And why do you love it? Why do you continue to do it now that you found it?
You know, we help people, right? I mean, I take a lot of pride in putting the right people in the right role, right? So
Mhm.
I am helping them provide for their family to forward their career. So it's really satisfying in doing that.
Mhm. I'm sure it's taxing as well. I'm sure it's got some a lot of, time where you're working for free or trying to
Oh,
fill
yeah.
something that you thought was somebody else or different things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can relate to that. I mean, it's always nice to know that at the end of the day, if you're helping people, it makes it worth it when you're working, a lot of hours every
It
week,
does.
right?
It's challenging because, I call a lot of these people cold, and I tell them who I am. You get a lot of no's,
Hmm.
right? But then you find that individual that is really looking and struggling to find that right position. You put them in that position, and we become friends for life.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about because you've had an extensive career in healthcare, and how has that experience shaped your approach to recruiting and your focus with who you place as well?
It's about more than the hard skills, right? What we do differently is we look at those soft skills, those people skills. We get to know the individual as to who they are and what activities they do outside work, because a lot of times that really impacts the position that they'd be interested in. So it's not just looking for that skill set, it's looking for that cultural fit and that personality fit that will enmesh with their culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how big culture plays a part in it, right? I mean, people overlook that a lot because they'll say, "Hey, I fit everything on this job description." But then, we're in the process of hiring somebody right now, and I know every time I interview somebody, sometimes within 5 minutes, sometimes it takes a couple interviews, and you realize, "Hey, this just probably isn't going to work," right? But
Right.
on paper, it's solid.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the use of technology has really made it much easier. Years ago, recruiters, you used to meet your candidates in person. Then, COVID came, any number of things working nationwide, it makes it more of a challenge. But being able to do things like this on a Zoom call and get to know them, see how they act, that's a critical component
Mhm.
in making the right placement for the right individual in the right placement.
I'd agree. And it just opens up the sea of potential opportunities for different candidates, right? So you're not traveling
Exactly.
across the nation for every single person you're trying to talk to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what are some common challenges healthcare companies face when it comes to hiring and how do you help them overcome those obstacles?
That's a very interesting question, Jesse. And today it is becoming more and more challenging. A lot of the work we do is what is called critical access hospitals. It's those rural community hospitals that really provide that critical care to that rural community. And with all of the political things going on right now, there's a lot of consternation over whether these hospitals are going to be able to stay afloat.
Mm.
It's challenging to find the people to staff that hospital and provide that level of care. And I think that's going to be becoming more and more a challenge in all of healthcare.
Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at, a lot of our listeners are candidates, right? So when we're looking at candidates and healthcare professionals looking to advance their career, what's some advice? What are some little golden nuggets or information that would help them stand out? And it's a pretty competitive job market, right? I wouldn't say there aren't opportunities, but it's pretty competitive.
It is. It is. I can answer that question a multitude of different ways.
Mhm.
Number one, it's those personality skills. Um, you need to be personable, you need to be approachable, you need to be knowledgeable in your field. A couple of the things that actually COVID really brought about was people going to do interim work or traveler work where you can make 2, 3 times the money you'd make in a permanent role. People did that to make the money. Well, when you want to come back in a permanent position, a lot of these facilities are frowning on those individuals or won't even talk to them.
Mm.
So, when I talk to candidates that say, hey, yeah, I'm considering a new opportunity, I may consider doing some travel or interim work, I forewarn them that, hey, that in today's market is really frowned upon. So let me help you find that permanent role instead of that interim, because long term it's going to be best.
Mhm.
You have to know the facility and what you're really targeting. You have to do the legwork as you're going into that interview process. You have to have rationale as to why you're making that decision, specifically if you're relocating, and why they should take a leap of faith on putting you in that role instead of somebody else. So
Mhm.
you really have to differentiate yourself.
Yeah. And I want to go to that interim thing. So I'm going to go back to that because I love that topic. But I will say it seems like in today's market as well, so many people just want to press apply to 500 positions a week or whatever it is and just hope that something sticks. I love that you said use the legwork. You've got to do the legwork and understand who you're applying to, what their pain points are, and understand how you can structure your background to align with it so that they're not just
Yes,
thinking, why is this a person applying? They don't even know who we are,
right.
right? We have that all the time with us, even.
Right. Well, one of the things that happens is, you know, a lot of the companies during COVID didn't want to pay a recruiter fee like mine, right? So they decided to internalize that recruitment. So many of the clients that decided to internalize hired fresh out of college newbies. And they give them a list. If we're looking for a CFO, I need to have a bachelor's degree, an MBA, a CPA, and you have to be a CFO in a critical access hospital. If you submit an application for that and you don't meet every one of those criteria, you're thrown aside.
Mm-hmm.
When you work with executive search or a good recruitment firm, they deal at a C-suite level, right? So I would go to that CEO and say, hey, I've got this exceptional candidate, Jesse. He checks all the boxes, but he doesn't have an advanced degree. Why wouldn't we want to consider it? Right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's where the difference from a candidate perspective comes in working with a recruiter than for just sending out those resumes.
Mm-hmm. And I know that the candidate is typically not the client, and I know we hit that on this podcast a lot, just to make sure people don't get that confused too often. It varies, but I think it's so important to remember that the recruiter can really make a difference in getting that inside track for you, and you being able to say that, right? Because you're right. If it's an MBA, I just had a CTO that we're working with one of our clients, great, qualified for the position, but luckily he was working with the recruiter because he didn't have the MBA, almost that
Yep.
exact experience, right? And luckily they were able to say,
Right.
hey, he's a solid fit, right?
Yes.
Take a look at him, please.
Right.
So,
And that's what a good recruiter does, right? I mean, it's not just pushing paper, right? I'm not just coordinating an interview or travel or what have you. My role as an executive recruiter is getting that feedback post interview from that hiring manager and from the candidate and passing that information both ways. So
mhm,
as we're progressing through that interview process, everybody's on the same page,
mhm,
right? So that when it comes to an offer, it's just kind of, the next step in the process, right? I just got off a call with a client and a candidate that I'm moving from Kansas to Oregon. And, there's all sorts of questions about the cost of living increases and what have you. I do all of that. I do a cost of living analysis. I talk to the candidate, hey, what is that minimum number you're going to need to make that move? From the client perspective, hey, where are you? You really like this gal. You want to offer 120,000. Well, we're 30 grand off here. But if you look at the cost of living, what have you, then I can help negotiate that. And that's part of the services that we provide is to make it a win-win proposition.
mhm. I do like that. I like that personal touch because it's, I know it's probably not the easiest route for you to take, but I'm sure it actually creates the win-win where
It
people
does.
can actually be happy. You're not just pushing a lot of
Right.
papers, right? You're getting
Yep.
you're getting some things solved, and I'm assuming that that leads to longer lasting candidate placement
It
and
does.
loyalty to the company. Yeah.
Significant. Yeah.
Mhm.
At executive search, our average tenure is 4.5 years. Depending upon the healthcare sector, that might be twice, three times the industry standard. And that's because we dig deep. We know the people, we know the organization, and we, you know, put the right pieces together so they dovetail.
Yeah. I want to shift a little bit. I want to go back to those interim roles because
Okay.
I have people tell me that they're interested in interim roles. I know it can be a great option for some people, but I've seen and heard as well that once you kind of do that, it's hard to jump back. So,
Yes.
so what do you suggest with that? I'd love to just kind of dive into that a little bit deeper. Why is that a problem? Why do you see that being a negative stigma right now?
Well, I think there's kind of a memory that, I was trying to hire a director of surgical services, right? A director level.
Hmm.
They were charging $2,000 a day. I mean, that's what physicians make full
Hmm.
time. So a lot of organizations really felt jaded that, they had to pay that to keep that OR open. The other aspect of it is people that do interim work are hired as the position is open. So they're hired gun
Hmm.
while they're finding that permanent placement. So they may step into a challenge, right? They may have a mess that they'll clean up and then they hire the permanent that takes over.
Hmm.
Well, if they are there to just clean up a mess and then leave, what does that mean for relationship building with the team, for mentoring, leading, coaching, that sort of thing? So
Hmm.
they want people, a lot of my clients want those people that have been in those permanent roles, have had to establish those relationships, dealt with those challenges long term. That's what they're looking for is the stability. So typically interim are hired at 13 weeks. That's what, for 3 months, 3.5 months. They
Hmm.
want people that are there 3.5 years.
Hmm. Gotcha. Gotcha. I appreciate that. This is, I like the information. I love the information we're talking about, honestly, because it's what I'm talking to executives all day long, and they're asking these questions, right? So it's
Right.
always great for them, our clients and potential clients, to be able to hear your thoughts as you've got, years of experience doing this and a
Yeah.
great background in it. So let's say somebody's listening, they're a potential candidate for you or a potential client for you, and they want to know more. They want to get to know Eric or reach out to your company. What's the best way for them to get to know you?
They can always find us either personally, Eric Falt at LinkedIn or Executive Search Associates on LinkedIn. Our web page is letmeshutmydoor.com. It gets a lot of laughs because we do call people cold.
Mhm.
And my phone number is 303-951-6378. If you're a candidate looking, I'd love to be able to give you my insight. If you're a client that may need some help, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation and see if we can help you hire that right team.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for giving that information. I love that you gave your number. That doesn't always happen. But I hope people listening are really paid attention to what you said, because it's really valuable information to know with the market today. So thank you for your time. I know you've got a busy schedule, and we
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Jesse, thanks for your time. Thrilled to be here. Have a great one.
Thank you.